Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Good Deeds Note Investing podcast. I am your co-host, Chris Seveny, along with Jamie Bateman, where today we are going to be answering your questions. So we're going to be taking questions from the audience that have been sent to us and be responding to those to the best of our ability. With that being said, Jamie, how are you on this wonderful day?
Great. It's Friday. I feel like I said this recently on a podcast, but I'm standing, sun is shining, so all is good. And yeah, and for those that are not a part of our Facebook group, you should join it, and that's where these questions are coming from. So if you ever want to pop questions in there, and we'll try to answer them on different episodes, or if we don't know, we'll tell you that too. But yeah, I'm doing well. How are you doing, Chris?
I'm doing well. I'm hoping to get my $70,000+ wired back to me for the foreclosure sale that I had, where I was a first position lien holder, but they don't allow what is called a credit bid, which is if you're owed the money, you can bid up to that amount without having come out of pocket because it's already owed to you. In Erie County, Pennsylvania, they do not follow those rules. They have their own complete different set of rules where it doesn't matter whether or not you're the lender. If you're bidding on the asset, you need to make sure you have the money at the bid. So my attorney had to have the funds in hand. So yesterday afternoon, I had to, go scrape up $70,000 to mail to my or wire to my attorney.
Wow, that is crazy. Yeah, I've never heard of that.
I'm just fortunate that it's within one of my funds, and we actually just sold an REO a few weeks ago because usually, I keep money, of course, aside on the funds and so forth, but you don't want to keep significant amount of money in your accounts because then your money's sitting there doing nothing for you. So you want to try and get it out on the street. And this one threw me for a curveball, to say the least. But at the end of the day, it was, just gotta roll with it.
That's pretty wild. I've not heard that. I know PA is a huge state. There's like 55 counties or something like that. And so, yeah, but I'm surprised I've not heard of that one before. This is a first for you too, right?
This is a first for me. Yes, it is. How about you? What happened with you this week?
So we just closed on our build to rent rental property in Ocala, Florida, which has taken almost 17 months. So I'm just happy to have it wrapped up, which is nice. And it's advertised for rent now. So apparently, I've heard this on other podcasts, but it's getting to be a more and more popular mode of strategy for investing, given the fact that there are not nearly enough rental properties out there. So builders and developers are buying up land, oftentimes in the Southeast, and building it for much cheaper than I could build, and then selling.
So what's interesting with that process is a lot of people like to go for the cash flow rentals. So typically they're buying rentals at like 50 grand that you can rent for 1,000 and so forth. But you can't build anything new for 50,000. So I find it interesting. It's kind of the anti component to that, but sounds like you'd still cash flow from it and to be able to build them for an affordable price.
Yeah. And everything has pros and cons. But on the pro side, it's brand new. So theoretically, the maintenance cost should be a lot lower in the beginning. We should be able to attract a higher quality tenant. And so, that's the thing with these low dollar rentals. People, on paper, your cash flow numbers and your ROI might look good. But in reality, that's not always the case. And I've just found with rentals, I'd rather take a slightly lower return and deal with fewer headaches personally. And we were able to, like I told you before we hit record, we were able to lock in a 40-year loan, which is the second time I've done this in the last few months. And, if I want to pay more on it, I can, but it helps you cash flow that much more. So just excited to lock that up. So that's our second rental in Florida. I've never been to either city. And, just adds to the portfolio, which is nice. So,
that's great for many reasons. So why don't we roll into the questions that we have? Actually, before we do that, I'm just going to jump back. And one of the things I just want to mention is, we talk a lot about notes, but there's also many different aspects of real estate that we invest in. We recommend other people invest in. And, Jamie's doing the rentals and stuff. I would, like to expand my rental portfolio. I'm looking at it, but it's challenging right now just because of the cost of housing and rentals. So it's everything in real estate right now is expensive. So just there's still deals to be found and they can be found. You just got to work harder to find them.
For sure. Yep.
So.
All right. So we popped a question or a post into our Facebook group to people to respond to with questions that they wanted answered. And first one, where do you want us to place the question? No, I'm kidding.
Thank you, Josh. If you read the post, it says put comments below, but it's okay. The sarcastic side of us won't come out too harsh on you.
Not at all. It's Friday afternoon. We're a little punchy, I think. So, all right, let's see. If you're investing in performing notes, how do you ensure you're making a good investment? You want to take that one?
Well, I'll start. So first, it's everything with no investing is about due diligence, whether it's a performing or non-performing note. So how do you ensure you're making a good investment on a performing note? Property value. What's the property look like? What's it worth? What's the pay history with the borrower? Performing means many different things in the eyes of many different people. Somebody that misses 8 months of payments and then pays once a year and makes up for 9 payments, I don't consider that performing, even though they're current. We talked about property value, talked about the pay history and the length. How long have they been paying on the loan? So I think those are some key components that you look at. If it's newly originated, you'll want to look at, the credit score, pay history, making sure that whoever originated that note knows what they're doing. If it's bank originated, they have to follow, mortgage loan originator laws and so forth. A lot of people who do like the one-off seller financing are like, oh, I don't have to comply with Dodd-Frank and do all of that stuff. Well, there's certain aspects of it actually you do have to do. But if you don't do any of that stuff that's required, you're devaluing your asset because people are going to want to make sure it's clean paper. And if you don't have a credit report from the borrower or an appraisal on the property, then that can hurt your value significantly. So some of the things I look for, make sure you're making good investment, is the numbers aren't coming like property value from the seller.
Yeah. I would just add on that I would approach, honestly, from a due diligence standpoint, I don't really approach a non-performing loan much differently than a performing loan. Obviously you're crunching the numbers differently and you're bidding accordingly. But from a due diligence standpoint, I would say assume your performing note will go non-performing, and hopefully you're wrong. But if that happens, do you still have a way out? And that's where you get into the collateral value and everything Chris just talked about. So yeah, I don't think just like with any investment, there's always risk. You can never fully ensure you're making a good investment. But I think make sure that your collateral value is high enough, that you're in a state that's, you could foreclose fast enough if you have to, so that if your performing loan, if it goes non-performing, you can still make some money. And I think the other thing that to mention is, and we've mentioned this on other episodes, but doing due diligence on your seller. So we can talk about due diligence on a note, but who are you buying that from? And that's, I think, probably more important actually than the deal itself. So, and one more thing, sorry, it just popped into my head, but if you're staking your entire retirement on one performing note, probably not a good idea. Again, as you start to buy in a little bit more bulk, I guess overall portfolio risk of one note going south is less of a big deal. If you've got, if you can buy 5 or 6 performing notes and one goes bad for a little bit, you can ride the wave. So,
okay, nice. So I would agree with all of those. So For the next question, I'm actually going to skip over Colin's question because I don't think that's something that about, back of napkin evaluation. I think
Mhm.
we could spend days on that, and it's very difficult to do back of napkin evaluation. So we'll touch upon that one at a later date. So here's where the wheels are going to get completely go off course on next question by Cody. Talk about how notes have enhanced your lifestyle. What are you able to do now that you wouldn't have been able to do without getting involved in notes?
That is a good one.
I can start if you want. So if you want
Sure.
a little time to
Yeah.
pause. And so first I'll mention is, this is where the wheels may go off course here. Notes can enhance your lifestyle. But the people who tell you can get started in notes and make $100,000 or $250,000 in your first year, all the hoopla to get you into some sales product and so forth, it's not happening unless you've got, think about if you're making 10%, at $1 million, that's only 100 grand. So if you got $1 million liquid, yeah, no problem. But you just getting started, unless you've been raising money in other aspects of life for many years, I don't think you're gonna raise. I don't know anyone that's raised $1 million in the first year. Now, to that point, let's go back to how's it enhanced my lifestyle. For me, it's been somewhat of a second full-time job that I've been operating out of. A lot of the money that I've made has been to put away towards college education, early retirement. So people ask, me, why don't I leave my full-time job? I'm doing the reverse of, whatever money I make. If I want to retire at 65, that money I'm putting away now allows me to retire sooner. Also allowed me just to pick up a vacation property in the Virgin Islands that we're going to have, other real estate that we're looking at. We've got some piece of property we've got our eyes on right now that we've been able to make enough money to put away for a down payment. So I haven't used it to, I'll say, like, live the lap of luxury, in the sense of, I'm not driving around in the Porsche that I want, and so forth, or, not buying 27 vacation properties. I am setting myself up for being able to live how I want later on in life. And that's what I want out of my lifestyle.
Makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think people like that we keep it real on this show, and we've said before, it takes, like you just said, it takes a long time to build up a significant income in notes,
Yeah.
normally speaking. So, um, you know, I've been doing the note thing for about, I guess, I don't know, 3.5 years now, I'll say,
Hmm.
um, which is, really not that long if you think about it. So I've been doing real estate longer, but so it certainly, so for it's there's so many ways to approach this one.
Hmm.
I've been able to meet a lot of cool people. Of course, I haven't met you, Chris, but just, I mean, that's another part of it. It's like, it's not just the money. It's like, just, I really enjoy running my own business and investing and just kind of managing a small team, leading a small team. So in that way, it's really enhanced my life. It gives me, I just like the work. So it gives me kind of a little bit of pride or purpose, I guess. And it's also, I mean, you can make money from anywhere. And it's also, it has added to our cash flow, our overall net worth. And the Jacksonville note turned into a rental, so it's also increased our rental portfolio size and therefore our cash flow in that way. I've learned a ton personally, about different states and different foreclosure processes, bankruptcy, so it's helped me to keep learning on a personal level. Yeah, that's it's not something where you start investing in notes and then 3 months later you're on a beach and
Yeah, you're not going to see us on the Facebook, pictures with like some, you know, beautiful woman on the beach, like sipping wine and saying, "Hey, lending our, invest in our offering and this could be you, or come take this class and this could be you, so forth. If I did, my membership group, I'll take a picture of somebody outside shoveling snow or something, and be, you got to do the hard work to get to the to where you want to be. So
Yeah.
okay, so the next question from Ellen is, how do you feel the note business has changed in the past couple of years, and how has the playing field changed for note investors who are just starting out?
So I can go first. I mean, on one hand, I haven't been in the space long enough to give you a true answer compared to 10, 15 years ago or something, but I do think it's definitely tightened up from a deal flow standpoint. I think it's frankly gotten harder for the, you know, the little man, I guess you can say, or whatever, as far as you're trying to buy a one-off deal. It is a little more challenging, I think, than even 2 years ago. I don't think that's a permanent thing necessarily. I think it's going to open up some, but pricing has gotten, you know, tighter. Yields have come down a little bit. COVID, I mean, that's that's the pandemic has been probably the biggest factor in the last 2 years, right? So from a court standpoint, it's really slowed things down, and just it's been a little slower, I think, and harder to find
Well,
deals. But
it,
what would you add?
look at anything right now. Try go buying a TV, a refrigerator,
Yeah,
getting an appliance, a car. You can't get them. I
yeah,
mean, basically everything. COVID has thrown a complete curveball in our supply chain, in just everything, and
mhm,
including notes. I think right now, like you said, notes are expensive because I think sellers think they can get what they want for them, because also there's a lot of cash out there. The government printing, last few years, like $3 trillion doesn't help the situation, because there's a lot more money out there and supply and demand. Now,
mhm.
for those starting out, is it a little more challenging? Yes. Is it impossible? No. I've heard people at other events say the individual note investor is going to be basically extinct in the next 12 months. That ain't happening. It's a I don't know, 10, 20, $30 trillion industry. You want to go spend $50,000 in a $1 trillion industry? Let's be real. You could go out and seller finance. You can buy seller finance. That ain't going
Mhm.
away.
No.
Is it going to be a little more challenging, where 5 years ago, literally you had people throwing tapes at you to say, please bid these? No, you need to work a little harder for that. And how do you work
Mhm.
harder? Networking, make connections, and continue to plug away. It's like any business. The work, if you're selling a product, you know, you have to market it and work to sell that product. Same thing, like you need to go to buy a note. It's almost like the opposite. You need to do the sales to find the individuals who you can sell it to.
Mhm.
So that's my two
Yeah, and
cents.
I also think it's gotten a little more popular. Could be just, I don't have any facts to back that up, but it just, from a perception standpoint, it seems like more people have gotten into the space maybe, but then there are people who've left as well. So
Yeah, I
um
wouldn't say it's more. Sorry to jump in there.
no, it's
It's
all good.
because there's a lot of window shoppers. And what I mean by that, there's a lot of people who,
Yeah, kick the tires.
kick the tires,
Yeah.
and you see them active, but
Hmm.
are they really doing anything? No.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So
So,
Josh put his comment down
oh, he
below.
did. He
Yeah.
yeah, he must
So
have reread
go
the
ahead.
question. How would a person scale a note business from an average of 2 notes a deal to more? What is the best way to scale? I mean, this is a whole, probably 3 episodes we could spend just on this. So I'll just start off if you don't mind. I've said this one before, but the note business, your note business boils down to 3 things. It's finding deals, finding notes, finding capital to buy those notes, and then managing the notes. Um, Without finding additional capital, like you alluded to, Chris, before, you're not going to be able to scale. So you can use other people's capital through joint ventures. You can do a fund. You can sell partials to scale your note business. And among other things, you can lend yourself money through infinite banking. And so those are different ways to get access to capital to scale. Go ahead. I know you got 17 thoughts.
No, keep going. No,
The
you've got a
other
lot.
thing
Good.
is, I mean, to scale any business, okay, a lot of things apply to the note business that apply to any other business. You've got to figure out, you've got to leverage other people or other companies. So you either hire actual employees or contractors, or you outsource to companies who are experts in a particular field, property preservation. You just can't do it all yourself. There's, especially with a full-time job, it's impossible. So you've got to figure out, so some, I know, Chris, you're a big fan of outsourcing a lot of things, but certain things you won't. So you've got to,
Yep.
we all have to kind of decide, what those are. Yeah, I think leverage in whether it's real estate, notes, you've got to leverage other people's money and other people's time in order to scale. That you really can't get around those two things.
I'm enjoying this because usually I'm the one who does all the talking.
Yeah.
And now that you're like talking, all of a sudden you're almost like gun shy. Like, am I talking too much a little bit? So I enjoy this. It saves my throat because I'm the one who's always gabbing and cutting you off and so forth. So when I sit here quietly, Jamie has, and we're recording this, Jamie has no idea how to react. He's like, what the hell is wrong with 70 today is probably what he's going through his head.
Yeah.
So I'll just keep it really simple. Plan.
That's good.
You need to plan. What is it you want to do and how do you want to get there? So if, let's say we're at the end of 2021, let's say next year you want to do 50 deals. Okay. That's 4 deals a month. Okay. And then say your average bid, you hit 20% of them. Okay. So bid on what? That's, I don't know, basically, so 20 notes, 20 notes a month, look, source, make, figure out, okay, how much funds do you have? Do you have 100,000? Do you want to break it up into 5 at 20? You want 2 at 50? And that can change. It's got to be fluid as well. Your plan can't be rigid because all of a sudden you could get smoking deal on 5 assets for 100 grand. And you're like, oh, I only want to buy 1 for 100 grand. But if you can get the 5 and they're smoking deal, then, you gotta move. As we like to talk, Jamie, it's like football, game planning. It's somewhat, as the game changes, you need to adapt to those changes as well. So
one other thing I'll add is, and I heard this the other day on a podcast, something about scaling for quality first and then scaling for quantity, meaning I do think it's good to kind of be in the game for a little while. There, like you touched on, there are a lot of people who kind of kick the tires and don't actually do much. And so they're not going to be taken seriously. I mean, honestly, you're not going to be, sellers aren't going to be entertaining your bids. And so I guess what I'm saying is show that you have some staying power, whether you're scaling slowly or not, because I think that will help you scale on a quantity, from a quantity standpoint later, because people will say, this guy's actually, this person is actually taking action and has been in the note space for a little bit now. But focus on quality first, and then focus on quantity as you actually grow your business. So what next?
Next, question number 5 would be, what are the real risks in non-performing and performing notes, and how to evaluate a note on a basic level? Okay. Again, all of this one it's a loaded question, Terrell, and is not something that you could answer in basically the 3 minutes or 5 minutes we're trying to answer these questions. Here's the risk. You could lose all your money. You could get sued and lose your money. So that's a risk.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter whether it's performing or non-performing.
I say you're evaluating the borrower and the property and the paper, right? I mean, that's, so those are where your risks and taxes come into there as well. But I mean, that's where your risks pop up.
So I'll mention one thing. And again, we're assuming this is based on firsts. First and seconds are slightly different. on first, you care about the property, taxes, title, which kind of go together.
Right.
And, basically, those are the three main
Mhm.
components. If it's a second, you also need to worry, review the borrower's credit because there is a loan in front of you. Is that loan paying? Is it not paying? But if you want to, here's my shameless plug. If you want to get more information on how to risk performing and non-performing notes, I just launched my new membership group called the 70 Note Syndicate. So why don't you look at joining, because you could learn all that information there.
There you go. One other thing I'll add is taxes and insurance. You mentioned taxes, but I'm saying tracking on an asset management level, tracking taxes and insurance. I know you had a recent scare about.
It's my note and bolt, buddy.
Okay, I'll save it. But
Okay.
you could lose the property, and then all of a sudden your loan becomes unsecured debt. Which, yeah, you're still owed that money, but your position is not really secure. So that's a risk. I think ultimately the biggest thing is you're trying to make sure your collateral value is there, and that your loan is secured.
Mm-hmm. So answer one more question, and then
Okay.
we'll wrap this one up. This
Okay.
one's from David Rosenhaus. Okay. This is an interesting one.
Yeah, it is.
What do you do with a note whose collateral is 26 properties in 3 different counties in 2 different states?
It's funny. I think I read that as countries initially.
As countries, you have a bigger problem.
Yeah, I was going to say walk. Wow. I mean, certainly I've not dealt with that personally.
Well, so I'm assuming that David is looking at buying this. So let's assume he's looking at buying it. So if I was looking at buying this, I'd have probably it reviewed first by I'll call it my general counsel, the attorney, my go-to counsel, because he also reviews a lot of business, loans. I would hope this was a commercial style loan, not, residential, kind of the typical Fannie Mae documents.
Yeah, I'm let's, for sake of argument, say it's 26 rental properties, just because it's probably, it's a good chance that's what it is.
So, I mean, you have the note, which basically is, hey, this person's borrowing X amount of dollars based off of, the note is the note. The security instrument's really the key component here is, how is it securitized? I've got a loan where it was, well, actually, you know what? It was 19, one note by 19 properties, same state, 2 different counties. And in that instance, it was, and I'm actually just looking it up right now. There was the note, and then the let's see, the mortgage itself basically listed so it was a commercial mortgage deed. That was a mortgage, and then it listed the legal descriptions of all the properties in the mortgage. And then what they did is they recorded that in every jurisdiction. So I'm not sure why. I would assume in this case it would be the same. So you would use a commercial mortgage deed, and then basically list, okay, based on a note dated this date, it was, call it, let's say it was 26 properties, 100 grand a piece, 2.6 million. Here are the properties that it backs this note, and you list all 26 of them. That commercial mortgage would then get recorded in the proper county of that state.
I've been on the other end where I've not to this extent, but we've gotten commercial loans that are, one note is backed by 3 or 4 properties as a borrower, I'm saying. Yeah, I don't know. If you want
to, I mean, I think that's the simplest thing is, again, check to make sure that the mortgage is recorded in every county. People I know get worried about the states and so forth, but if it was 26 rentals, it shouldn't be 26 different mortgages based off of the Fannie Mae document in referencing that note. Maybe they did it that way, but the
Mhm.
simpler way would have been, well, let me step back. If it was done right, it would have been handled by attorneys who would have done it
Mhm.
right. If this was a seller finance deal, I'd probably pretty much want to walk from it because I'm guessing the legal terms that were put in there, was there a confession of judgment? Was there a personal guarantee? What's it in? Is it an LLC or someone's personal name? Are there other properties in this LLC? There's a lot that goes into the commercial side of things that you want to definitely
Yeah.
take a look at.
I just wonder if I'd even want to mess with it, to be honest with you. If the seller, if the property owner wants to go and sell 2 of the 26,
There's got to be language in there about how much, because
yeah,
a certain percentage of those has to all flow back.
right.
I mean,
It's
that's
doable.
it's
I just don't know from a business standpoint if I would
yeah.
even want to mess with it
I mean,
personally.
it's a different type of note investing. You're in the commercial space now, and
Yeah.
it's very different. So,
Mhm.
well,
Okay.
Jamie, I think we've answered a good round of questions on this episode of the Good Deeds Don't Invest in podcast. Let's roll to your drum roll, please. That's horrible. Speaking of which, I'm going to digress. So, my wife being Russian, they roll their R's. And it's actually not like how we would roll our R's is, we basically like almost gurgle. Theirs is the way they speak. It's trained at their age that it's like they do something with their tongue that
Mhm.
we could never do. Or I know I can't. My kids can do it because they start at a young age, but it's just when you hear them talk and it just flows like so natural compared to somebody, non-Russian saying it, it's actually pretty comical. But there's my digression moment for this episode. Note and bolt. Do you have one or I can go first? What do you want to do, buddy?
Go first.
So my note and bolt is again about checking taxes. We've talked about this all the time, but here's an interesting one where I have a contract for deed and we have we had to foreclose on it. And the foreclosure date is December, I think 7th. It's coming up pretty quickly. And this one's been a little hairy because the state doesn't really, it's in South Carolina and this county is going back and forth, kind of not understanding contract for deeds, which is why it's much easier, usually just traditional mortgage and note. So it's been back and forth, back and forth. It's been delayed. The judge keeps, delaying certain things, asking for more information. We've provided everything. And then, part of any foreclosure, you have to run title, make sure everything's clear. And so basically, I always have the attorney order the title. Like if they're like, hey, title report, I'm like, you order it. I may pay an extra $100, but that way you're in control. When you get it, you can keep filing. Many different reasons.
Mhm.
So in this instance, I go to the post office box and I get, a letter that I open up, and basically it was dated, and I got last Wednesday, no, last Thursday, but it was dated like October 27th or, some random day. Basically says, if you do not redeem your property by November 1st, the property will be sold at tax sale as the tax lien was sold on date. So I read this and I'm looking at this and this is on 11/11. So I'm like, oh boy, this one's already sold and it's sold for like, I think it was like $1,100 or $400. I mean, it's like peanuts from my cost. So I forwarded to attorney. I'm like, so at first I go online and I realize online the tax department doesn't have my entity, even though I've owned this thing for 2 years. Okay. It's recorded deed and so forth, my name, but tax department never updated it. So they've been sending the statements to the prior owner who, every prior owner, just for you people to know, if I get mail that I don't own the asset anymore, typically it goes in the recycle bin.
That's actually my note and bolt. Go ahead.
Okay. Sorry. Didn't want to steal it. So I send an email to the attorney and I'm like, what's going on here? I'm like, why didn't this show up on title? This just seems way off. Never got to the point of them answering the question about the title, why it did or didn't, but they called the office that last Friday. The office wasn't open. So they called them on Monday and the tax office admitted they were sending the tax bills to the wrong place. And basically we were like, and we filed foreclosure, and usually on a foreclosure, the tax department gets notified that they have to, put a claim in if as well,
Mhm.
priority claim, which they didn't do. So the tax department clearly wasn't clean. My attorney wasn't clean. I'm not clean because I probably should have known the taxes. Nobody's clean. But the tax department basically said, hey, if you send us money today, we'll let you redeem it. So we sent them a check for, like I said, I think it ended up being $1,100. I think the tax notice was only like 400, but all fees added up and stuff. But I wasn't going to argue. So we got it back out of tax sale, thankfully, and
Nice.
now get to go take the property back. It was a property that the borrower wasn't occupying. It's been used as a rental, and the person renting it hasn't been able to pay for COVID. So I'm going to end up inheriting actually own the property, but hopefully we, have to foreclose on the property I own, unfortunately, and then probably have to evict.
Okay, so your note and bolt is what?
My note,
Monitor your taxes.
yes, but also, again, don't always take no for an answer. I mean, I saw the letter
Yeah.
and I'm like,
Yeah.
hey, like some people are like, oh my God, and go cry
Right.
underneath their desk for a day and stuff. I'm like, nope, let me, boom, boom, boom. Let me call the attorney, ask the attorney, can you please help me out on this one? The thing I did not do, I did not like scream at the attorney, how could this happen? Anything like that. I just, sent it to them, picked up the phone, called, said, hey, Miss Boom. I said, I got this in the mail. It just, something don't seem right. Can you reach out on my behalf? Because you have a better understanding of the laws, but also what's been going on with this case. They said, yep, no problem. Let's look into it. And they took care of it.
So I've got, as you speak, I come up with, many, but the one I said I was going to do is that it's on the converse, if you sold a note, or in this case, I sold a CFD to someone I didn't know through, third party exchange. And that was 15 months ago, and I'm still getting the tax bills as well as code violations. And so, I may end up having to do the recording because I don't want to deal with this anymore. But I guess just because you've quote unquote sold your loan, especially in the case of a CFD, doesn't mean you're entirely done with it. You might want to still monitor whether the buyer actually recorded the docs. The other thing, so my second note and bolt is to monitor forced place insurance. And I think someone that that you're working with who told his servicer to put forced place insurance on a group of loans. And from my understanding, the servicer said, yep, we're good. And one of those loans did not actually get forced place insurance put on it. So, and then in another case, I just bought a loan where the loan seller doesn't know, I said, is there insurance on this? And both the seller and the servicer do not know whether there's homeowners insurance or forced place insurance. I guess they would know if there's FPI, but to me, that's baffling. I mean, I get it if you're managing 5,000 notes and you missed one, but if you've got 5 notes and you are not tracking whether there's insurance on the property, I mean, it's not enjoyable to do, but find a system that works and track insurance, hazard insurance, whether that's forced place or homeowners. It's just way too risky to turn a blind eye. So yeah, a couple notes and bolts in there.
Good. By the way, you want to go after a boutique hotel in Georgetown, Washington, D.C., non-performing note, by the way.
Only if it's across 3 different counties and 26 properties.
Oh, okay. Oh, I could make that happen somehow. So don't challenge me.
Yes. No.
Well, okay. Any final thoughts on this episode, Jamie?
Oh, this was good. We've got more material for another episode. So I do appreciate. I say no, and then I give final thoughts. I do appreciate people. There were a lot of responses to this post, so I appreciate the interaction. That's the whole point of the group, is to help each other out. So thanks for posting questions, and thanks for listening.
Yes. And thank you all for listening to this episode of Good Deeds Note Investing Podcast. As always, please leave us a review on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, or your favorite listening station, and go out and do some good deeds. Thank you.